She thought she was just visiting an old mansion to find her father. But what she discovered inside changed everything she believed about life, death, and herself. When the dead knocked back, rain dripped from the edges of the roof. Each drop echoed against the tin like a slow heartbeat. Mara stood in the hallway, holding the old brass handle of the front door. The storm outside whispered through the cracks, hissing like a voice trying to speak. The lights flickered once, then again. A smell of damp wood and mold filled the house, heavy and choking. She looked down at the doormat. Mud stains. But she had not stepped outside since morning. The grandfather clock in the living room clicked softly, its pendulum swinging in uneven rhythm. Mara took a slow breath. She had heard it again, that knock. Not loud. Just 3 soft taps, deliberate, patient. Someone was out there. Or something. She called out, her voice trembling. "Who is it?" Silence. Only the sound of rain crawling down the window glass. She waited. Her hand hovered over the handle. A faint sound came from the other side, breathing. Low. Heavy. Wet. Her heart pounded in her ears. She turned the handle just a little. The door creaked. Cold air spilled into the hall, touching her skin like icy fingers. No one. The porch was empty. The muddy ground outside glistened under the dim porch light. But there were footprints. Bare feet. Human. Leading away from the door, disappearing into the darkness beyond the gate. She swallowed hard. Her throat felt dry as dust. Then, from behind her, the sound came again. 3 knocks. But not from the front door this time. From the inside. She spun around. The sound came from the kitchen door at the end of the hall. Her legs refused to move, but her body trembled forward on instinct. The hallway seemed to stretch, the shadows deepening with every step. The smell of wet earth grew stronger. A faint dripping echoed somewhere, though she could not see where it came from. She reached the kitchen door. It was slightly ajar. A cold draft moved through it, whispering across her neck. Her hand pushed it open. The kitchen was dark except for the pale light from the storm flashing outside. Everything seemed untouched. Plates. The old wooden table. The knife she had left near the sink. Then she saw it. The muddy footprints again. They began from the back door, and ended right where she stood. A sound rose from beneath the table. Slow inhale. Then a cough. Something moved in the shadows. Mara froze. Her breath caught in her chest. A hand, gray and bloated, pressed against the floor and began to pull itself forward. It was trembling, dripping with water, leaving black stains on the tiles. Her eyes widened as the face followed. Pale, swollen, lips torn open as if drowned. She staggered back. Her heels struck the doorframe. She knew that face. It was her brother's. The one they buried last month. He looked up, eyes glazed but moving. His mouth opened, water spilling out as he tried to speak. Mara! Her name left his throat in a gurgling whisper. The air turned heavy, thick with the smell of rot. Thunder rolled outside, shaking the glass in the windows. She could not move. He crawled closer, his wet fingers dragging over the tiles with a sound like tearing skin. Behind him, more hands began to rise from the darkness. The floor creaked. The walls seemed to pulse with faint vibrations, as if the house itself were breathing. Another voice joined the first. Then another. Then dozens. Mara! They whispered in unison. Their voices rose and fell like the sound of the wind. And then, someone knocked on the front door again. 3 slow, steady taps. Mara's head jerked toward the sound. The knocks came again. 3 perfect beats. Calm, deliberate, final. Her breath trembled in her throat. The air inside the kitchen had grown thick, too heavy to swallow. The smell of rot mixed with wet dirt until it stung her nose. Her brother's eyes never left hers. He was kneeling now, the bones in his fingers jutting beneath the gray skin as he tried to rise. Water dripped from his lips. He took a step toward her. The others behind him were moving too. Bodies half-formed in the darkness, outlines shimmering whenever the lightning flashed through the window. Mara stumbled backward, clutching the edge of the counter. The cold metal of the sink pressed into her back. Her heartbeat was so loud it drowned the thunder. Another knock from the front door again. This time harder. The sound vibrated through the floor, through her feet, through her bones. She ran from the kitchen, slipping on the wet tiles. Her breath came out in gasps. The hallway stretched before her, flickering with shadows that seemed to breathe on their own. The front door rattled under a forceful shove. She reached for the handle, then froze. Because the old mirror on the wall beside the door reflected something she could not see directly. In the glass, her own reflection was not alone. Behind her stood the drowned faces. Dozens of them. Open. Mouths slack. Their pale hands reaching toward her reflection. But when she turned around, nothing. Just the empty hallway. And then the mirror fogged up, as if someone were breathing against the inside of it. A message began to appear in the mist. Letters written slowly, one by one. Let us in. Her knees weakened. Her fingers slipped from the door handle. The house moaned, wood bending, walls creaking, nails whining as if the structure itself were alive. From the kitchen came the soft shuffle of wet feet. They were coming closer. Mara grabbed the nearest thing she could, the heavy brass candlestick from the table. She turned, holding it up with shaking hands. The lightning outside flashed again, flooding the hall with white light. For a single second she saw them clearly. Every face, every ruined body. Their skin glistened with river water. Their eyes were dull, but locked on her. Her brother stood at the front, lips split into something that might once have been a smile. "We came back," he said softly. His voice gurgled through the water trapped in his throat. "For you." The candlestick slipped from her grip and hit the floor with a hollow clang. She tried to move, but her legs no longer listened. The air grew colder. Her breath came out as mist. The house was no longer just creaking, it was shifting. Boards twisting. Nails popping loose. The front door burst open. Wind and rain screamed into the hallway. The smell of the river poured in, heavy and sour. Something stepped through the doorway. Not her brother. Not human. Its form was wrapped in dripping cloth, face hidden beneath a veil of black hair. It raised its head slowly. And when it looked at her, Mara's mind went blank, because the face beneath was her own. Identical. Ill. Drowned. The reflection she had seen in the mirror, now standing before her. Her double smiled, water streaming down its cheeks. It lifted a hand, palm facing her. From outside, thunder crashed once more, and the rest of the dead began to crawl through the door. The wind roared through the open door, tearing at the curtains and scattering papers into the air. Rain lashed across the floor, pooling around Mara's bare feet. She could not move. The air felt thick as honey, every breath a struggle. Her reflection, the drowned version of herself, stepped forward, water dripping from its chin. Its eyes were glassy and pale, yet locked on hers with eerie intelligence. When it spoke, its voice came from somewhere deep beneath the surface of the world. "You left us there, Mara." The words crawled through the air, each syllable trembling like a whisper inside her skull. She shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. "No, I did not. I did not leave anyone." Her voice cracked, barely a sound above the wind. The reflection smiled wider. It raised one trembling hand and pointed toward the hallway behind her. Mara turned and froze. The drowned ones were no longer in the kitchen. They were here now, spilling slowly into the hallway. Dozens of them. Men, women, children. All faces she recognized. Neighbors, friends, people from the village. The ones who vanished when the river flooded last year. The storm had swallowed them, and she had watched from the hill, unable to help. Their eyes stared at her now with dull accusation. Each movement was jerky, boneless, as if their bodies were held together by nothing but memory. "Mara," they whispered together, the sound rising like a breeze through dead leaves. She stumbled backward, her heel catching the edge of the rug. She fell, palms slapping into cold water. The reflection moved closer. His bare feet made no sound. The rain around it seemed to avoid touching its body, bending away like invisible fingers parted the storm. "You promised," it said softly. "Before the river took them. You promised you would save us." Her throat tightened. She remembered. The night the storm came. The water rising fast. Her brother shouting for her to come back for him. The rope had slipped from her hands. She had watched him disappear into the current. And she had run. She had told herself she could do nothing. That no one could. Now the truth stood before her. Cold, silent and staring. The reflection knelt beside her. Water dripping onto her cheek. "Do you hear them now?" it whispered. The house began to groan louder. The walls bulged as if something pressed from the inside. The floorboards warped, wet footprints glowing faintly like phosphorescent algae. Mara pushed herself up, trembling. "I did not mean to." "Intent does not cleanse guilt," the reflection hissed. Behind it, her brother staggered forward, eyes pale as the moon. "You left me in the dark," he said. His voice broke with pain that did not sound human anymore. "You left me calling your name until the water filled my mouth." Mara covered her ears, shaking her head wildly. "Stop it!" But the sound did not stop. It grew louder, echoing from every wall, from the ceiling, from the floor itself. Whispers. Cries. Dozens of names. They all knew her name. The storm outside raged harder. Thunder cracked so close it rattled the pictures off the walls. The reflection leaned close until its lips were almost touching her ear. "You can still come back," it breathed. "There is still room in the river." Mara's pulse raced. Her vision blurred. She staggered toward the staircase, slipping on the soaked rug. The dead followed, their steps slow but relentless. The wood beneath her feet moaned as if it would split apart. She climbed, clutching the banister, her wet dress clinging to her skin. The air upstairs was freezing, her breath visible in white clouds. Behind her, the reflection moved effortlessly, gliding rather than walking. Every step it took left a small puddle that steamed against the wooden floor. Mara reached the top landing and ran into her bedroom. She slammed the door, twisting the lock. The room was dim, lit only by flashes of lightning. Her reflection stared back from the old oval mirror on the wall. Except now, the mirror image did not copy her. It moved on its own. It smiled. Then lifted a hand and knocked on the inside of the glass. 3 slow taps. Her heart thudded. From the hallway came the soft sound of feet. Dozens of them. Bragging. But the smell of river water seeped under the door. Mara stumbled back until she hit the bed frame. She clutched the sheets, her knuckles white. The knocking from the mirror grew louder. The glass began to ripple like the surface of a pond. "Mara," the reflection said, though its lips barely moved. "Let me out." "No," she screamed, shaking her head. Lightning flared again, lighting the room in stark blue-white. For an instant, she saw what stood behind the reflection, a black current swirling with faces, mouths open in silent cries. Hands pressed against the other side of the mirror, palms flat, desperate. Then the glass cracked. A sharp line split down the middle, spreading like lightning across the surface. Water began to pour out. Cold, dark, endless. The floor flooded instantly, creeping up her legs. The door burst open. The drowned ones entered, silent now, eyes fixed on her. Mara screamed, backing onto the bed. The water rose to her knees. Then her waist. Her brother stepped forward. He reached out his hand. "Mara, it is time." "I cannot," she sobbed. "You already did," he whispered. The mirror shattered completely. A wave of icy black water surged into the room, sweeping over everything. The light bulb burst with a hiss. Darkness swallowed her. She sank beneath the freezing current, thrashing, gasping, but there was no air, only the heavy pull of the river dragging her down. Shapes floated beside her. Pale faces. Fingers brushing her skin. She opened her mouth to scream and felt the water rush in, burning her lungs. Her eyes snapped open. She was lying on the floor of her bedroom. Dry. The house was silent. The rain outside had stopped. The clock ticked softly downstairs. Everything looked exactly as before. But her skin was cold. Her hair was damp. And the mirror, perfectly whole again, reflected something wrong. Her reflection was smiling. She was not. Her reflection tilted its head slightly, eyes filled with something dark and ancient. Then it lifted its hand and knocked once more. 3 slow, perfect taps. From somewhere below, in the quiet of the house, another knock answered, this time from the front door. Followed by another. And another. The rhythm spread through the walls, through the floors, until the entire house pulsed like a beating heart. Mara pressed her hands over her ears. "Stop," she whispered. But the knocking continued. The sound came now from the windows, from under the floor, from the ceiling, everywhere. Each knock grew softer, more synchronized, until it was no longer a sound but a pulse. And then silence. The house exhaled. For a long moment nothing moved. Then, faintly, she heard water dripping again. She looked down. A dark puddle had formed at her feet. It grew wider, spreading toward the mirror. Her reflection reached through it, fingers pushing out of the glass. Skin pale, veins dark blue like river branches. The fingers brushed her arm. The touch was so cold it burned. Mara screamed, stumbling back, but her feet slipped on the water. She fell, striking her head against the corner of the bedpost. Everything went black. When her eyes opened again, she was standing, but not in her room. She was back in the hallway downstairs. The door was wide open. The night outside was calm. The air smelled of rain and earth. She looked down at her hands, pale, gray, wrinkled like soaked paper. Her heart stopped. The mirror in the hall showed her truth. Her reflection, the real one, now stood inside the glass. It was alive, dry, breathing. Looking out. Looking at her. It mouthed a single word. "Goodbye," and then turned away. Mara raised her trembling hands against the mirror, but the surface was solid now. No sound. No cracks. Only her own ghostly face staring back. Outside, the first light of dawn began to creep through the clouds. The storm had ended. But from deep within the river beyond the hill, faint echoes began to rise. 3 slow knocks. And then silence once more. The faint gray light of morning barely reached the old house on the hill. Mist hung low, curling around the porch like smoke from a dying fire. Inside everything was still. The grandfather clock had stopped ticking sometime during the night. Its pendulum hung crooked, motionless, as if frozen mid-breath. Mara stood in the middle of the hallway, staring at the mirror. Her reflection stood opposite her, alive, warm, eyes filled with fear and pity. She lifted her hand. The reflection did the same. But the cold surface between them held firm. Her palm left no mark. Her breath left no fog. It was as if she did not truly exist anymore. She turned her head slowly toward the front door. It was open wide. Beyond it, the world looked strange. The grass too bright, the trees too still. No sound of birds. No hum of insects. Only the faint whisper of water moving somewhere far below the hill. Mara stepped forward, but her feet made no sound against the floorboards. Each step felt like walking through air. The smell of damp earth lingered, mixed with something faintly metallic. She reached the threshold and looked out. The path down the hill shimmered as if covered by a thin sheet of glass. The puddles from last night's storm reflected not the gray sky but rippling darkness, like deep wells. She crouched and touched one. It was colder than ice. And it moved. A ripple spread from her fingertip, forming circles that pulsed outward. Then, from within the reflection, something blinked. "Nay." She stumbled back, heart pounding, but there was no sound, not even the sound of her heartbeat. The eye vanished. The puddle stilled. She looked toward the river below. It shimmered faintly through the fog. That was where they had drowned. Her brother. The others. Her promise. The memory came like a wound reopening. She remembered the current, the screams, the sky splitting open with thunder as the bridge collapsed. She had run for help. By the time she returned, the river had already taken them. The guilt had eaten her every day since. And now, perhaps it had consumed her entirely. She took a trembling step outside. The world felt lighter but wrong. Every sound came distant, muffled, as though she was hearing through water. The trees seemed to lean toward her. Their branches creaked, dripping dew that fell slower than it should. As she walked down the path, the puddles along the way shimmered again. Each one showed a different image. In one, she saw her childhood home before it burned. In another, her mother's face, eyes closed in peace. Then her brother, smiling, alive. For a moment, warmth filled her chest. She almost smiled back. Then his face changed. The smile twisted into something sharp. His skin turned gray. Water gushed from his mouth, and hands reached out from the reflection, grasping upward. Mara stepped back, gasping. But the ground beneath her shifted. The hill was soft now, not soil but silt, wet and unstable. It sucked at her shoes, pulling her down inch by inch. She clawed at the grass, but it came away in clumps, roots snapping wetly. "Mara!" The voice came from all around her. "Whoa." Not angry but sorrowful. She turned and saw them. The drowned ones, standing at the edge of the mist, lining the path. Dozens of them, motionless, water still dripping from their clothes though no rain fell. Her brother stood at the center. He was less decayed now, his face almost peaceful. But his eyes held that same cold glow, the light of something that had seen death and remembered it too well. He lifted his hand toward her. "Come back to us." "I cannot," she whispered. "You already have," he said gently. And as he spoke, she saw her reflection again, standing behind him. The living version of herself. Alive inside the mirror world, staring out in terror. Her reflection raised its hands and began to pound on the invisible wall that separated them. "No," Mara whispered. "She belongs here now," her brother said softly. "She took your place. The river remembers balance." Mara's breath caught. Her mind reeled. So that was it. Her reflection was not trapped. She was. And the living Mara would go on, unaware that the thing in her skin was not her at all. Her voice broke. "Please. Let me go." Her brother shook his head slowly. The other figures moved closer, their feet making no sound. When they spoke together, their voices merged into a single low hum. "The river keeps what it is given." The mist around her thickened. It began to glow faintly blue. The air grew colder, biting her skin. Her breath came out in pale clouds that floated too long before fading. Her knees weakened. She sank to the ground. The mud rose higher, curling around her legs like fingers. Her brother knelt beside her, his hand hovering near her face. "You cannot undo what is done," he said. "But you can rest." He placed his palm on her forehead. The touch was freezing. Her vision blurred. The sound of water filled her ears. The world tilted. When she opened her eyes again, she was standing in shallow water. The river stretched wide and endless before her, its surface black and shining. The mist floated low over it like a moving ceiling. Figures drifted through the fog, pale shapes, faces turned upward, silent. She looked down at herself. Her reflection on the surface moved a moment too slow, like a memory catching up. Behind her, she felt the others gather. The drowned ones, her brother among them. They stood in silence, gazing at the horizon where the water met the mist. A faint light flickered there. Not sunlight, something older. "Where are we?" she whispered. Her brother's answer was simple. "Where the forgotten wait." The light pulsed once, twice. Each pulse sent ripples through the water, and every ripple carried whispers, names, prayers, the last words of those who never left the river. Mara stepped forward. The cold bit deep into her bones, but it no longer hurt. The others followed, silent like mourners in procession. As they moved deeper, the current began to pull. It was gentle at first, then stronger. It tugged at her, not cruelly, but with purpose. She looked back. The hill and the house were fading into the mist. Through the fog she saw her reflection one last time, standing on the porch, alive, breathing, watching. Their eyes met. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then the reflection turned away, closing the door. And Mara felt herself dissolve into the current. The cold no longer hurt. The water carried her weight. The voices around her blended into one endless murmur. No time. No fear. Only the slow rhythm of the river's heart. Above the surface, morning broke. The house stood silent, empty. A bird landed on the fence, chirping once before flying away. Inside, the mirror in the hallway was fogged again. On its surface, a message appeared in wet streaks. 3 words, faint but clear. The river keeps. Then the letters blurred, washed away by unseen hands. The house creaked once, as if exhaling. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying with it the faintest sound, a knock. Then another. Then one more. 3 slow, steady taps that echoed up from the river below. And as the mist thickened, the sound faded into the distance. The world went quiet. The hills stood still. And the river kept flowing, dark, endless, whispering the names of those who would never leave its depths. Final episode. The river's last whisper. The river was calm that morning. Not a ripple disturbed its dark, glassy surface. The mist that once smothered the hill had thinned, rising like breath from something that had finally gone still. The old house watched in silence. Its wooden frame no longer groaned, no longer wept with the storm. Only the faint scent of rain and mud lingered in its bones. Inside, sunlight crept through the cracked windows, tracing soft gold lines across the dusty floorboards. The mirror in the hallway, the one that had held 2 souls, stood clear at last. No fog, no handprints, no whispers, just a single reflection now. The living Mara, or the thing wearing her face, stood before it, holding a candle in one hand. The flame flickered softly, its glow painting her skin with warmth that felt almost real. Her eyes, though bright, carried something deep and distant within them. She touched the mirror's surface. This time it was solid, warm. Her reflection moved perfectly with her again. And yet, behind her smile, there was a shadow, faint like a memory trying to breathe. From outside, a breeze drifted in, carrying the smell of wet earth and river reeds. She stepped to the door and looked toward the valley below. The river shimmered under the light, smooth and endless. Its surface gave nothing away. No ghosts, no faces, just water, quiet and eternal. For a long time she stood there, the wind lifting her hair, her heart beating softly in rhythm with the distant flow. And then, from far below, came one last sound. 3 soft knocks, gentle and hurried, like a farewell. Mara smiled faintly, not out of fear but understanding. She whispered toward the water, her voice barely carried by the wind. I will remember. The air stilled. The sound faded. The candle in her hand burned steady, its flame straight and calm. She turned back into the house and closed the door. For the first time in years, the place felt lighter, peaceful. Outside, the river kept flowing, whispering to the stones and roots along its path. Its voice was soft, the language of the forgotten, the promise of rest. And somewhere beneath that quiet current, where light could no longer reach, the real Mara drifted in the gentle dark. Her eyes were closed, her face serene. No more struggle, no more guilt, only the rhythm of the water, eternal, forgiving, unbroken. The river had taken what it was owed, and given something back in return. Silence, stillness, peace. The end.